Hey everyone, how's it going? My name is Richard Moglen. Welcome back to another Stock Market Outlook video sponsored by MarketSmith. And this week we finished into new all-time highs on both the NASDAQ Composite as well as the S&P 500 if we go to that chart. And this is a bullish sign, although we are potentially short-term extended up near the top of this kind of channel here. So keep that in mind, but always you have to listen to the leading stocks, the market indexes, your own holdings, into really deciding whether something is extended or not, because stuff can go a lot higher than any of us think. And if we actually go to a 5-minute chart, we can see a huge ramp into the close, really a great example of power hour here, just a lot of buying pressure. The expectation really is we continue into new all-time highs into next week and finish that week off strong as well. So in this video, as always, we'll go through the charts of the indexes, the potential true market leaders, my previous watch list, as well as my current holdings. And then we'll also discuss a few different sources of sentiment and then finish things off with the IBD Big Picture article and the GMI Signal from wishingblog.com. So diving right in with my holdings, let's start with TIGR here, which was my best performer this week, but I just really have a token position in this, nothing substantial at all. But it finished right near all-time highs and made relative strength new all-time highs on this day right here. It's in a very, very strong uptrend above the 10 SMA and actually found support there on this Friday and finished very, very strong above this high right here. You can see it was an oops reversal, upside reversal, and also a bullish outside day because of this blue bar right here, which basically stands for a kind of strat technique and up. Moving on, we've got SI, which is my largest position. And we had a little bit of, well, not a little, but a huge shakeout on this Wednesday. Look at this range. It was down 18% at one point here, but I didn't sell a share. This has been my strongest position throughout this entire uptrend. And then it was kind of forming a flag here, kind of two inside days to start Friday off, but then it moved up strongly to end the day, and I added to it on this day as well. And let's actually go intraday as well. Great intraday VCP here. Let me draw that in here. Here's one contraction, here's the other, and then it gets really tight here where I've got this arrow. From this point, it's up almost 7% in just a few minutes here, basically 60 minutes. So it's pretty insane. It's acting very, very strong, and my expectation is that it continues out into all-time highs next week. Moving on, we've got NEO, which had a nice move here on this day, this Monday, and then continued follow through here, but then it's kind of faded the last 3 days on below average volume. So I do want to see it continue to find support at this kind of prior level at about 59.25 and move up next week and approach this pivot and then eventually all-time highs. Next up, we've got DocuSign, which is a really strong fundamental stock within a long base moving up the right side here. A little bit choppy, but overall a very strong day, a 3-bar break, upside reversal, and strat up as well. An inside day the day before, and then it moved all the way down, and then moved all the way up through this high, and that was kind of my signal to start buying, and I put on a 3/4 position, and right now I don't know if it's right at all-time highs, 263, so it made new kind of relatively recent new all-time highs, although it's not quite above this level here where it really went crazy into earnings. So that is DocuSign. I'll look to add to this next week if it falls through. And I do want to see more volume. That was really the only thing missing this day right here. Moving on, we've got Peloton, which I entered today as a half position, and I added today through this high and through this high as well, making this a full position. A really strong move, 3-bar break, inside day and up, and looks very, very good. Not the highest volume, but is higher than these previous days. And my expectation next week is it challenges these all-time highs, or not all-time highs, these intermediate highs, and eventually these highs right here. Moving on, we've got Zoom, which acted well and continued up from this strong breakout this past Friday. Nice upside reversal on this Friday, and it is increasing on lower volume, but I would like to see it kind of base out here, form a flag, and then move up once again and make its way to all-time highs. Moving on, we've got TDOC, and it had a nice upside reversal on this Wednesday. Good close inside day on this day, and then a nice move here, an inside day and up, and I added to it a little bit today, not too much, but overall this is a very large position, second only to SI for me. So my expectation is it continues to move up next week and challenge these all-time highs relatively soon. Moving on, we've got AI, which I sold today for a small gain. I bought late in the day on this inside day and added through this follow-through day here, but I didn't want to carry it over into the weekend, although it is decreasing on below average volume. I'll wait for the next entry setup, potentially a 2-2 reversal as early as Monday. Moving on, we've got Plug, which I started buying on this day, pulling back to the anchored VWAPs from these 2 points here, doing nothing wrong, decreasing on lower than average volume. And this is a pretty good setup going into next week. If we hide these drawings here, a potential high tide flag, great accumulation signs on this uptrend, and then pretty much going sideways, and the Bollinger Bands are tightening a little bit at this point, and it's right near the bottom. So definitely on my watch list next week to add to my current position. Next up, we've got DKNG, and I was stopped out of this stock on this day and then basically added it through my cost around here on this Friday. And it is acting well price-wise, but volume was higher on the down day, the 3-bar break. So I am watching this very, very closely. And I do want to see it kind of retake this area and challenge all-time highs. It is a potential green line right at this point at about 65. Next up, we've got Corsair, which did report earnings, and they were very strong, but the price did decrease, but it found support around 40. I started buying on this day and this day, so I have a little bit of a cushion to work with, and I added a little bit on this day right here as it took out this high. So overall, I do want to see this move up. It is having a little bit of trouble passing through this kind of 44.20 area, so I do want to see it kind of take that next week and challenge these highs and then these all-time highs as well. Moving on, we've got Edit, and I started buying this on this day off the 50 SMA, added a little bit through this high right here, added a little bit on this day again after I found support at the 50 SMA, but then I let all my position go for a small loss as this was a pretty bad bar as it moved back through this low right here on this Wednesday. And this never really fully recovered. It did have a nice upside reversal on this day, although on lower volume than the down days. And overall, it looks like it needs just a little bit more time to form out a proper base here. If it was symmetric, you might expect it to move up and then challenge all-time highs in a few weeks or so. So overall, let's get rid of the ones I don't currently own, and that would be getting rid of AI as well. So these are my current positions, pretty concentrated in SI and TDOC. Zoom is also a big position, as well as Corsair and DocuSign I just started, and DKNG also is about a 3/4 position. So starting with the QQQ on a daily time frame, let's take a look at this week. And this Monday, we had a gap up, moved down to the prior close, then it found support, moved up, which was a strong sign. Then this day, we gapped down, but finished strong, tried to move all the way up, but did finish below this close, which I took as a potential sign of weakness. And then this day, we gapped up, then moved all the way down, but then did recover to end the day pretty close to this wicks range. So this was a sign of strength and a good shakeout. Then we had a nice inside day with an upside reversal bar here, and then a strong end to the week, especially as we saw this last kind of period here. The last 60 minutes were very, very strong in power hour. And going over to a weekly chart, you can see that this bar overall, we were up 1.54% with a weekly closing range of 97.6%, daily closing range on Friday of 95.7%. And we are in a strong stage 2 uptrend, and the expectation from the weekly bar is sideways or higher. And let me move this over here a little bit. And we go to the SPY, we are also up strongly with a good closing range, up 1.29% with a week closing range of 95.2% and a daily closing range on Friday of 91.7%. And we are in a strong stage 2 uptrend. And moving on to the IWM, the Russell 2000, we also had a strong week, up 2.53%, but we did have a little bit of a weaker weekly closing range of only 55.8%, but a strong daily closing range on Friday of 84.5%, and we are in a very strong stage 2 uptrend. Taking a look at Bitcoin, we had a nice move up from this base here, up 29.12% with a weekly closing range of 95.4% and a daily closing range of 95.6%. The expectation from this bar is sideways or higher. We are in a stage 2 uptrend. Looking at Ethereum, it's moving up the right side of the space here. Overall is up 4.01% with a weekly closing range of 75.9% and a daily closing range of 71.6%. And the expectation from this bar is sideways or higher, and we are in a stage 2 uptrend. Looking at the DIA, the Dow Jones, it also had a nice week up 1.12% with a week closing range of 79.2% and a daily closing range of 92.4%. The expectation from this bar is sideways or higher, and we are in a stage 2 uptrend. And looking at the FFTY, it was up 5.54%, so a little bit stronger than the other indexes. So growth stocks did very, very well. A strong weekly closing range of 98.2% and a daily closing range of 95.7% on Friday. So the expectation from this bar is sideways or higher, and we are a little bit extended here, but we are also in a very strong stage 2 uptrend. Looking at gold, this is definitely in a kind of downtrend here below the 10-week, and overall we were up 0.52%, but it was just an inside week here with a pretty poor weekly closing range of 24.3% and a daily closing range of 45.8%. And the expectation from this bar is pretty much sideways, and we are not in a stage 2 uptrend. Moving on to the VIX, it was down once again, down 4.31%, and it's challenging these lows right here. And looking at the XLF, it was up as well, up 2.04% with a weekly closing range of 94.6% and a daily closing range on Friday of 92.7%. The expectation from this bar is sideways or higher. We are in a stage 2 uptrend. So overall, the indexes are in strong uptrends and look very, very good, although potentially a bit short-term extended above their 10 weeks. And going over to the NASDAQ composite, you can see we are a little bit extended here above 7% at 7.74%. And looking at the Webby RSI, we did have some spikes early in the week, but we did let that 21 EMA catch up a little bit on Thursday and Friday, which is a good sign. So overall, a little bit extended historically, but this is a very, very strong market, especially because of all the quantitative easing from the Fed. So overall, good things from the indexes. And now let's move on to the potential true market leaders. And opening this up, let's take a look at everything and sort by the weekly change. Many of them were green on the week, some up over 10, 20%. A lot of green checks, although we do have some red circles here, which are worth noting. So overall, going through the charts, let's take a look at FTSE, which is up every single week. Let's go back to this main chart. And it did have kind of 2 straight gaps and then a poor closing range and 2 down days. So this might need a little bit of time and base a little bit before continuing the uptrend. Looking at Zillow, this had a strong earnings gap up on large volume, great follow-on action as well. So this looks very strong above all the key moving averages. Fiverr moved up strongly as well. Great volume coming in on this day. And this just broke out into all-time highs and looks very, very good above all those short-term moving averages. SI based and then broke out as we talked about earlier. SQ moved up strongly as well. This is also kind of crypto related. 2 inside days here, or not quite 2 inside days, but very close. And then a nice move up to end the week on Thursday and Friday. XP recovered nicely from a pretty bad Wednesday and probably reacted positively to the Zillow news and finished the week off pretty well. Twilio also broke out into all-time highs this week and finished strong. Upwork, like Fiverr, acted well and finished the week with 2 inside days. TSM continues to trend and lead the chips. CrowdStrike broke out into all-time highs today, although not relative strength to all-time highs. FLGT moved up strongly, but then kind of based the last 3 days and did undercut this low, so maybe it could fall to the 10-day here, but it definitely is short-term extended, although very, very strong within this uptrend. Looking at SE, it's doing well, double inside days to end the week above all those key moving averages. MVCR broke out into all-time highs and then pretty much went sideways. ENPH had its earnings report here, finished very, very poorly within its range, couldn't take all-time highs, but did have some sign of life today, although on lower volume. Looking at Roku, is trending well above all those key moving averages. NEO, we talked about it. Fetch moved up well, especially after this large upside reversal into all-time highs. Peloton, nice move today, as we talked about. Zscaler, like CrowdStrike, into all-time highs. Next up, we got pins, and this is a little bit of some choppy action here. But overall, it had a gap up on Thursday on some news that Microsoft had tried to acquire it, but that didn't come through. And we finished the week with an inside day above all the key moving averages. TDOC, we already talked about, looks good. PGNY trending above all those key moving averages. ETHE looks strong, 3-bar break on this Friday. PDD looks good as well, although not the strongest close to the week, but it is kind of pulling back on below average volume above all those key moving averages. TDD is forming a nice little shelf here, so this is potentially actionable next week. through these highs. It's back above all those key moving averages. Melly looks good as well, forming another shelf here, and nice upside reversal on this Friday. Net had earnings today, and it did gap down, but it finished strong with an upside reversal. But this is a 3-bar break, so it might need a little bit of time, although it is kind of comforting that it did have a nice closing range to the day. Moving on, we've got Snap, which has pretty much gone sideways after this huge bullish outside day here, but looks good above all those key moving averages, and it's pulling back on below average volume. GRWG moved down sharply on Wednesday and Thursday, but did potentially find support here at the 21 EMA. Apps moved up strongly after earnings and now is basing on below average volume. Looks good. CELH looks very, very good for next week, basing within a potential high tight flag here. Great volume signs here, and then below average volume within this basing period. Tesla, upside reversal on this Friday, and let's see, did it undercut this low? This low was at 780.10, and this is 785.33. So it did undercut that, which is good, stopping everybody out who use this as kind of their stop loss. So this is potentially actionable next week. Moving on, we've got CGC, and this broke very, very sharply on this Thursday and didn't really bounce back on this Friday either. Corsair we talked about, and lastly we've got PLTR, which pulled back before earnings on the 16th below the 21 EMA. So overall, the action of the leaders is pretty strong. We've got a bunch making new all-time highs in terms of price and RS, although you do have some that were extended that are pulling back now and are still basing a little bit. But overall, good action. And now let's move on to my previous watch list. And so let's sort by the weekly change. And number one on the list was ACMR, which I didn't take, unfortunately, but it had a really nice breakout through this pivot, 3-bar break and 2-2 reversal, and then a super strong end to the week. Look at this bar, up 13.22% on huge volume. This looks really strong, and this actually was also a green line breakout on this Thursday. So great action here. I would expect it to base here, but this will be on my watch list if it forms a nice shelf, potentially for a quick swing trade. Next up, we've got NLS, which moved up and broke out of this handle here. You've got the downward trend line break on this Monday and then fall through the standard pivot here. And now it's pulled back to this pivot on below average volume. LMND was up 12.28%. Looks pretty good off the 21 EMA. TSM looks strong. A nice move starting this Monday, a 3-bar break. CrowdStrike, 3-bar break on this Wednesday and also through this pivot and inside day and up. MVCR, nice breakout to all-time highs and a 2-2 reversal on this Monday. ENPH tried to break out on earnings as we saw, but had a very bad reaction to it and overall did finish up 6%, but mostly due to this strong bar on Friday on below average volume. Moving on, we've got NEO, which was actionable off the 21 EMA here. I did add and looks pretty good, pulling back on below average volume to this level right here. CSIC also moved up and then pretty much went sideways on Thursday and Friday. AI, as I talked about, I bought on this day and this day and then sold as it pulls back on below average volume. Area is still going sideways and it is potentially actionable next week through this high and nice upside reversal action here, along with an oops reversal as it moved up through this low after kind of gapping down to start the day. Moving on, we've got Plug, which is doing nothing wrong but pulling back to these anchored VWAPs. CRSP, similar to Edit, broke down a little bit last week, but did find support here at about 150 or so, and had a nice kind of undercut and rally setup if that's kind of your style. Next up, we've got Tesla, which also had a nice undercut and rally setup here on this Friday, and looking for fall through here, and it's potentially actionable as it retakes the 21 EMA early next week. AMWL kind of broke down through this tight area. Doesn't look too good, even though this pullback is on below average volume. And lastly, we've got Edit, which also broke down like CRSP. And actually, I'm not sure if CRSP was on my original watch list. I might have just kind of flagged that because I was watching Edit as well. But regardless, Edit also kind of broke down and broke expectations, and I sold it as I talked about, but doesn't look too good and needs a little bit more time to form out a base. So overall, nice action for my watch list. ACMR over 35% gain, NLS 15, LMND 12, and TSM crowd at 7% as well. And overall, we had 11 out of the 16 green on the week, which is pretty good. So make sure you guys tune in tomorrow when I'll be posting my next list of ideas. So moving on to sentiment, you can see we did increase this week from 54.4% bullish to now 54.9% bullish. So not the most dramatic change here. And moving on to bulls versus bears, we are still pulling back, although we did have a slight uptick to end the week. And put call ratio is still very, very low, although it's been there for months now. So this isn't really anything new. And lastly, we've got the name and exposure index, which is very, very high at 110. So this is kind of indicating be a little bit more cautious because this is relatively high historically. Moving on, let's talk about the IBD Big Picture article. And the headline is Dow Jones, NASDAQ post weekly gains. Is market psychology overly bullish? Here's what one fund manager thinks. So reading through, they talk about how NYC is actually lessening restrictions, which I hope they can do safely. They discuss the economic forecast and also talk to Andrew Sliman from Morgan Stanley about the VIX. And he talks about the 11 to 12 level here. And that's kind of what he marks the euphoria phase. So keep that in mind. And overall, the current outlook is a confirmed uptrend. You've got a late hour rally on Friday and 4 distribution days on the S&P 500 and 1 on the NASDAQ. So still relatively low. You've got some leaders up in volume here and leaders down in volume as well. And lastly, we've got the GMI Signal, and it is still green since November 5th. And we've got a GMI score of 6 out of 6 on this Friday. So overall, taking everything into account, my current view is still a confirmed uptrend. We're finishing at all-time highs on the indexes, a lot of leading stocks, and overall things are acting well. But still remember, you've got to practice good risk management, enter when you can define your risk, and keep it as close as possible so you keep your losses small. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you did, please go ahead and leave a like down below and subscribe if you are new. I'll see you guys in future videos.